Welcome to the Success Ascent. My name is Pat Mancuso, the creator and host of our show. Today we welcome Mr. Matt Sweetwood. Matt's an entrepreneur, consultant, speaker, and also the author of Leader of the Pack. What I love today in our episode is Matt shared a couple of points, including how badly do we want success? Go with what you are, don't be who you are not. He says we tend to stay in situations or circumstances a lot longer than we should. And the last thing is that things don't go in a linear fashion for entrepreneurs. I know you're going to enjoy the episode today, so on to the ascent. Welcome to the Success Ascent. My name is Pat Mancuso, and we are excited that you are with us today and grateful for the guest that I'm going to share with you in just a second. As I always ask at the beginning and the end of our show, if you love what we're doing, please go and subscribe, leave us a great rating. You can also go to www.thesuccessascent.com and sign up for updates. So let me introduce our guest to you today. His name is Matt Sweetwood, and he's the CEO and founder of Insurious. He's a successful serial entrepreneur, professional speaker, business consultant, award-winning marketer, social media influencer, personal brand expert, and a photography instructor. That's kind of an interesting ad. He's nationally known for photography in the photography industry as an innovator. He's helped acquire over 25 U.S. and international trademarks. He's founded and ran the Aussie award-winning publication Photo Insider. He's been credited with the reinvention of the modern camera store, as well as the country's largest in-store education program, the Unique University. However, by far, his greatest achievement is having raised 5 successful children to adulthood as a single dad. Matt was awarded custody of his 5 children, ages 18 months to 8 years old. In the 25 years since then, he's raised these kids into happy, successful, and kind-hearted adults, which is a big challenge in today's world. He has a #1 best-selling book, Leader of the Pack, How a Single Dad Led 5 Kids, his business, and himself from disaster to success. In it, he details his journey of success as a father and a business leader. He's also appeared on regular contributor on Fox News, NBC Today Show, CBS. They go on and on and on, Matt. My goodness gracious, we are so grateful to have you with us today. So welcome.
Hey, Pat, I am thrilled and excited to be here. And I just want to state that all of that happened when I had hair. Okay?
Exactly, right?
So like, what have you done for me lately, right?
I love it. I love it. Well, Matt, we always like to start off our show asking, I say, hey, that was Matt on paper. Tell us something about Matt that isn't on paper, or that would be something that would be fun to talk about.
Well, I think that, we talked a little bit about this beforehand. For me, what people don't know is that I gave up a lot of that. I'm one of those people that always needs a new challenge, that always needs something new going on. So that business that I built, that great business, star of the photo industry, I sold that business. I got rid of it and then started over again where I was a nobody. And I've been, driving a few startups to success. And it's really fun, because nobody cared that I was like this big maca. From the photography industry. They show up, they're like, who are you? You sit in the chair in the waiting room and you start, but I really like the challenge. And the next one that I build is going to be even bigger. So for me, that's what people don't know. I get, everybody knows me from that industry, but I'm in industries now where, I'm just some guy who's got some ideas and some companies running and they're not sure they're going to fund them or have anything to do with it. And I got to prove myself again. It's kind of like being married. Right? You have to prove yourself every day or, that's it. It's over for us guys. So, but in any event, that's kind of what I did. That's what people don't know is I really I wasn't going to be the person who just kind of rode off into the sunset doing the same thing all the time. I actually walked out of the business at its peak.
Yeah.
Which was a very difficult thing to do, right? Because I went from safety and security to the unknown.
Welcome to entrepreneurship, right? That's the common theme amongst entrepreneurs.
Right. And now we work, 80 hours a week, so we don't have to work 40, right? Isn't that
There you go. Well, Matt, the premise of our show is the journey of success. And we know that journey is typically upward. Sometimes it's backwards, sideways, hopefully not too much backwards. So there's 2 things I really want to talk to you about today. And the first one is this, What have you learned along that journey of success that you would share with others? Like one or two really big things if somebody was to ask you, I'm on this, I want to become an entrepreneur. Tell me what the secret recipe is. What would you share?
Yeah, I'm going to give you three. You asked
Awesome.
for two. I always over deliver.
Over deliver. I love it.
Over deliver. I think my answer to that, first of all, is that if you want to be an entrepreneur, plan on working hard. You know, people sometimes step back from, you know, their normal, what's considered a day job or, you know, an hourly kind of job. Even if you're salaried, it's still, you know, ultimately an hourly job, and say, you know, I want to own my own business. I want to be my own boss. Well, the first thing you should realize is that means you're going to double your workload. If you want to be successful, be prepared to work and work a lot of times in demotivating circumstances, because a lot of times, like you said, you go backwards, you go forwards. I think being an entrepreneur is more like being in a whirlpool. You know, it bubbles, and splashes, and spins around. And I was going to say a toilet bowl, but that's really kind of negative. So, you know, it's be prepared to work really hard. And that leads me to my second piece of advice, which is if you want to be successful as an entrepreneur, you have to want success badly enough. My personal motto is, how badly do you want it? So when I face obstacles, because you are going to face obstacles along the way, you have to say to yourself, am I willing to do whatever it takes, legally and ethically, to actually make it work? And a lot of times, you know, I'll use my own experience. A lot of times something's not working, you know, or I'm failing at it. And I say to myself, I usually have this moment where, you know, I bang my head enough times and I'm like, Matt, why isn't this working? Is it not working because it's not a good idea, or is it not working because you just don't want it badly enough? And many times that's the case. And it's okay to not want it badly enough. Just means you need to do something else. So if you have an idea, a business idea, and you're going at that, you have to want success badly enough to do anything and everything it takes for as long as it takes in order to make that work. And my third piece of advice is a very, very deep piece of advice that I unfortunately did not follow in my life. And maybe I'm getting ahead of myself because
you're good. You're good.
Maybe I'm getting ahead of myself. And that is, you have to trust yourself. Trust your gut. You have three voices that go on in you. You have your head voice, you have your heart voice, and you have your gut voice. Okay. This is the first time I've ever really said this out loud. So you're getting a premiere of this whole body thinking process. There's like a talk in here. I'm like a professional speaker. I'm like going to formulate a new talk right now. Your head, heart, and gut voice. And, you know, your head, everybody knows what your head tells you. Right. You analyze the situation, you understand the way it works, and your idea sits up there. Okay. And you're like, I know I can do this. And I know that this industry needs this business, and I know how to make this work. And the market is this big. Hopefully you've done that. Then this is how we can make profit, the whole bit. And then your heart says, you know, I love this, right? And I love the people in it, and I have so much fun, and it cares, and it helps people, and it does all of that. But the most important voice in your body is in your gut. And a lot of us have big guts. So, you know, there's a lot of thinking that goes on there. Okay. I used to have a big gut, not anymore, but nevertheless, it illustrates the point. And so when your gut is telling you no, you better listen to that. And if your gut is telling you yes, you go for it. And so, and what I really mean by that and all of that sort of humor is that you have to learn to trust yourself. Listen to all the voices. Trust yourself. Don't have other people. I will tell you that every single business that I've been successful in, and there's been several, I basically had people around me telling me that's not going to work. It's going to fail. You're wasting your time. You're doing this wrong. You're doing that. You know, you listen to the advice. Sometimes it's good advice. Sometimes it's not. But you have to trust yourself. You know, and that also applies in your personal life. Like I've engaged in it. If you read my book, Leader of the Pack, you'll see I made a lot of really stupid personal decisions. The book is, I mean, to end up as a single dad of 5 little kids, when their mom left, the kids were like 18 months to 8 years old, like one still in diapers. You know, in order to get in that sort of situation, you have to make a lot of mistakes yourself and who you pick and what you do with your life and why have 5 kids and all of these things. So, and I didn't trust myself. I didn't have enough self-esteem. I didn't trust myself. So for me, those are the 3 really big pieces of life and business advice that I'm gonna give you out there, which is work hard, decide how badly you want it, and trust yourself.
Well, I love that. And you said something which is common in almost every interview that I've done since we started the podcast, in that as an entrepreneur, somewhere along the way, somebody has told them that something they were doing wasn't going to work. And in spite of that, they didn't listen to that advice. And I think that's common because we have a lot of people around us that are at that negative or want to keep us and protect us. So,
I will add to that is not to dismiss all negative advice.
Right.
I'm talking more of a motivational thing. So this is a very spiritual concept. And it actually took me a long time but when I read this, I read the brilliance of it. And I'll use the example is you're walking down the street and there's a crazy person on the street.
Just one? Just one?
Just one. I'm not talking about New York City, because New York City, that wouldn't be just one. Okay?
Yeah.
So I'm talking about, let's say, Disney World. Okay?
Okay.
No. So you're walking down the street, there's a crazy person on the street, mentally challenged. I'm sorry if I use the word crazy. A mentally challenged person who's, going through a rough time. And he turns to you and he starts yelling at you. And he calls you, I'll pick up a name that's PG rated. He calls you fat. Okay. Now you have a couple reactions to that. One, you could, get mad and beat him up. Okay. That's a bad reaction because obviously he's a hurting person and, beating him
hurting people hurt people.
Right. That's right. Hurting people hurt people. Right. So you can have that reaction, but you're not going to do that. You know that he's not well. He's hurting himself. The second thing is you could get hurt yourself by him calling you that.
Right.
Right. You can be like, that really hurt. I got insulted, and it could kind of ruin your day. Or you can have sympathy for him. This is choice 3. And this is the choice. And this is what I'm going to relate this to business in a sec. And this is choice 3 is you can say, he called me fat. I'm going to use this as an opportunity to look at my own physical shape.
Right. And
decide whether I like it or not. And so you can use that as a reminder that you need to look at your own physical conditioning, because physical conditioning, as we know, is one of my most famous sayings, is the foundation for emotional and mental strength. We can have a whole podcast on that one.
Yeah.
But you can say, okay, I'm going to use that. So when someone gives you a negative shot, right, they're just negative all the time. What I tend to do is I tend not to absorb their negativity. Right? Okay. You don't want to do that and get discouraged or demoralized. What you want to do is very calmly decide whether that's an area where you should analyze deeper. Right? Maybe there is 5% truth to that. Exactly. Like maybe, and I'm using this example, maybe I'm not fat, but you know what? I probably could lose 3 or 4 pounds, and I probably should exercise another day of the week. And I use that because everybody can understand that. It's a very personal kind of thing. The same thing is true in your business. When they tell you, you designed that widget and it has sharp edges and no one's ever going to buy anything with sharp edges.
Right.
You say to yourself, no, I know there's people, but you know what? There's probably some people that want smooth edges. So maybe I should also make something that has smooth edges or make it as an option.
Absolutely.
Right. So there's a way of channeling negative people around you back into your trust. So you're trusting yourself and you're using it in a productive way. That's a very elevated way to do it, because it's very demoralizing when people around you telling you you're going to fail and this isn't going to work and this is a stupid idea and you failed every other time in your life. And I'm not going to waste our podcast time listing all the people that have failed and got kicked out and did all of this stuff and blah, blah, blah. I can give you the Michael Jordan got kicked off his high school basketball team, yep. Blah, 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 blah. We know all of that, and Anthony Hopkins couldn't act and, this, whatever, yep. You've heard all that. I don't know if that's true, by the way. I just made that one up, but nevertheless, you've heard all these stories. So the idea is to channel this negativity and actually make it work for you.
Well, and what I love that you said is there may be an ounce of reality to what they said. So don't just, dismiss it out of hand. Right. And use it as motivation.
That's right. They insulted me. F them, and that's not a good answer either.
That's a little bit of ego, right? And that's what gets us into trouble.
Right. Absolutely. And ego, I will tell you that ego, particularly in the startup world where I exist, having ego or hubris is the sure way to drive your company off the face of the earth.
Yeah, yeah. So let me ask you another question, Matt, around success, and then I want to flip to the really the important thing of what you accomplish in your life with your family. Has there been any big surprise along your success your journey of success that you would share with people, like something that you were like, whoa, just didn't expect that?
Yeah, I think that my expectation that things would go in a more linear fashion. I think that's maybe all of our expectation. Yeah, you'll have some ups and downs. But I think what surprised me in my journey, I'm talking about a 25, 30-year journey, despite my youthful appearance, I've been doing it a long time, is that, I was like on the verge of failure several times. Not necessarily my own fault, just industry change, technology. I was in the electronics and the photography business. Film went away, and then digital photography came about, and internet came about, and Amazon came about, and all these things happened along the way. And I think, to me, that was really the biggest surprise, is that I thought that if I just worked hard and I was really smart about my business and we dug in there, that I would have this, there'd be some perturbations in the growth scale. Look at that.
Right.
Look at that word. Everybody's going perturbations. I can't believe I used that word today. Actually, I woke up this morning and said, I'm going to use a word that's, a little bit unusual. I thought it was just going to sort of evenly, go its way. But no, it goes like this, and then boom. And it goes like this, and boom. And you just have to want it badly enough, like I said, just to keep, pick your head up and just say, somehow I'm going to survive, and I'll transition for you. For me, that how badly that I wanted it really came from having to care and feed for my 5 little kids. I could say, okay, I could walk away and go surf in Hawaii, and just, live off the land and, chase girls and pick bananas and surf.
Sure.
But I had 5 little kids that were counting on me, and that required me to make sure the business was a success, because unfortunately my kids are really smart, which meant that they're going to all, top colleges, which they did, and so on. So somebody had to pay for that.
Yeah.
And if I was going to pay for that, I had to work hard to make the business work.
So I love the transition. So let's talk about that. So one of the things when and I study, and I know you do, and you follow and you read about people's success, one of the things, there's a commonality sometimes that there's an expense that comes with it, right? There's something, either it's a personal expense on the part of the entrepreneur or a family expense as part of relationships. And so you had, let's not go back to why and how. Let's just go back to, you're now a dad of 5 kids, and you got to provide for the family, you got to provide for the kids, and you got to run a business. So talk about that initial experience, that initial thought process. Wow, what did you start thinking?
Yeah. So I'll say first is that I am not a believer in work-life balance. I don't think that there is such a thing. I am a believer in making it all work.
Right. Counterbalancing.
Whatever that really means. But to answer your question, and I'm going to answer it really briefly, and then I'm going to use this to plug my book, because I spend a lot of time talking about that moment. A lot of my book talks about when you're in that moment of crisis, or oh my God kind of thing, and how you pull yourself out of it. And that's why my book has, was a bestseller, is #1 bestseller self-help book. It's got 145-star reviews on Amazon and so on. It's because of that motivational, inspirational moment. And I think for me, you sort of pegged it when you said, you sort of made that look. I sat there and basically was lost. I was out in very bad physical condition myself. My wife just walked out on me. I was thought I was a loser, thought I'd be alone the rest of my life. I had 5 little kids who were not in such good condition at that time, with really very little clue how to handle them. My business was in one of those areas where it would boom at the same time. And I'm like, oh my God, how am I going to survive? How am I going to come out of this? How am I going to do anything? I should just run away.
Yeah. There's no playbook. You can't pull a book.
There's no playbook for this. And you have to dig down deep within yourself. And I talk about, and I really bring this to the forefront in my book, Leader of the Pack, where I really, I wrote a lot. And the reason I wrote the book is the book was really meant to help people and really motivate them to pull themselves out of that. So the answer is, yeah, I was in an moment, for actually a pretty extended period of time until I did some things which, eventually allowed me to come out and be successful.
So let me ask you one question. It kind of clicked. Would there be one thing that you could point to or share that you look back on what happened prior to that moment that led to that moment?
Yeah, I think that it's exactly what I talked about before, is not trusting myself and not trusting my instincts and knowing something is wrong or feeling it's wrong and just continuing to do it because your brain tells you this is what you must do, so do this. But no, my gut was telling me this is all wrong and this shouldn't happen. And I did it more than once in my life. And that's why when you ask that question, I really, let off with it.
Yeah. Well, and I've always believed in coaching and been mentored that nothing happens suddenly, it happens gradually. And so, gradually this didn't happen, or it didn't suddenly happen, it gradually, and that's what you just kind of talked about.
That's right. And I agree. I mean, I've coached many people, as I said before, 100% successful, coached and consulted people. And and one of the techniques that I always use, one of the conversational things that I always use when I coach somebody is I get them to look back like that. Because when you look back like that, then the person gains an understanding for how they ended up where they are. Yeah. And sort of these subconscious habits or these sort of ways that we become comfortable with that lead us down these paths.
So let me ask you a question on the book. Okay. So I love the book and I love how you talked about it. If there was one thing from the book that you would share with people as the enticement to go buy the book, like what's the one biggest feedback you've gotten from people that said, wow, that was worth the price of the book? What would it be?
Yeah, I'm going to give you two.
I love that you over-deliver. I
over-deliver. Number one, it really shows how you change your mentality when you're in a crisis or you're in a difficult situation or you want to change your life. For me, it's sort of a step-by-step, how you take step one, step two, step three, and how you change yourself in a way so even if you're in what appears to be an impossible circumstance, you get out. There's some magic in that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think the other thing in the book is that it's a business and a personal book. But in the personal book, a lot of people are in difficult relationships, and the book provided a lot of relief and understanding for people that are in difficult relationships and why sometimes we stay in them longer than we should.
Particularly,
and people really, that hit home for a lot of people.
Yeah.
One of some of the you've made the best case for why people stay in a difficult or abusive relationships.
Right.
And the other aspect is sort of talking about a man's perspective on children and raising and running a business and being a leader at home and at work.
Yeah. And you hit on something that I've heard many times before, in that when you're in that stage of relationship and there's kids, the biggest, thing is staying with the kids, and yet staying because of the kids, and yet that's more harmful sometimes.
That's right. I've written articles about this, and it's ingrained in between the lines in the book, of course.
Absolutely. Well, I love that. And absolutely. And I'm going to post here where people can go find out about the book in addition to Amazon. So Matt, I'm going to shift gears because we've only got a few minutes left. I always ask my guests the best advice they've ever been given and the worst advice. And you already talked about the worst advice. So let's talk about what's the best advice you've ever been given from coach, friend, mentor that hopefully you followed in what it meant. I'm
going to give you two. You see, I always
consistency. I love it.
I love it. Consistency and over delivering. I read a book called Relentless by Tim Grover. And one of the things that came out of that book is he puts people into sort of categories. And the advice that I got from that book is that I learned that I'm something called a closer. And you want to be what you are, and don't try to be somebody you're not. So if you really like to go with the flow, go with the flow. If you really like to go against the flow, go against the flow. If you like to be the leader and always need to, that's what you do. And whenever you're not yourself,
right,
you tend to go off track. I'll give you a real life example of that. I had a consultant come into my company when I was in the electronics business, and I was considering acquiring another company. And I said to him, I said, you know, I'm really on the edge of doing this. He happened to be visiting me that day. I said, what do you think about that? So he sat there. He was an older gentleman, glasses down on the end of the nose, and he's looking at the analysis that I did and the analysis of the company. And he's like, Matt, turn your monitor around. Let's call up their website. So I call up the website. He looks at it, and he goes, you know, Matt, that looks like they're a very high volume, low margin kind of business. And he goes, look in your office. He goes, how much is your desk? Okay, I had a pretty fancy desk.
Yep.
Tiled floor. He goes, look at your website. Look at your advertising. He goes, Matt, you're a quality guy. He goes, you sell a service and quality and really luxury kind of approach to business. He goes, this is a penny business. This is not in your personality. It's not going to work for you. You're going to be miserable running this business, and you ultimately won't be successful. So you have to go with what you are. Yeah. You know, in my case, and I sort of translate that into something that's a little bit obnoxious, which is I always say I'm a very, very good team player as long as I'm the leader of the team. And, you know, so, and that's really my comfort role, and some people are not. So it's really understand what your personality and what your strengths are and really stick to them. And I got that from that book, and I've gotten that from a few places in life. And my second piece of advice is more spiritual, and that's trusting God. God got you to where you are. You're sitting there. You're alive, however many years you are. You've had food on the table, God willing, most of the time. You know, you've made it this far, and trust no matter how difficult things are, you're gonna go further. Than you're gonna keep going and go further.
Well, I love that, Matt, and you know, so I'm gonna prepare you to kind of give us a final thought as we sign off here. Ladies and gentlemen, as I always do, first, thank you so much for spending your time with us, whether you're listening live or listening on the podcast. Again, I'll scroll our website where you can go sign up. I've got Matt's website here. It's got some great information there, great content. So, Matt, before we go, one final thought you would share with us, and you've been amazing today, so we really do appreciate it. What final thought would you share?
Don't hesitate. Just go do it. Right? And a lot of people overthink, should I do this? Should I do that? Time is passing. Think about a time in your life when you were thinking. My advice to you is go out there and make it happen now and want it badly enough.
Yeah, I love it. I love it, Matt. Well, again, thank you so much, everybody, for being with us today. As I say before I end every show, be happy, be safe, be healthy. Matt, thanks so much again. We appreciate you.
Pleasure's been all mine, Pat.
Take care, everybody. If you've not yet subscribed, please go to your favorite podcast source and subscribe to The Success Ascent, or simply go to www.thesuccessascent, and that's ASCENT.com, thesuccessascent.com. Thanks so much for joining us today. We look forward to catching you on the next Ascent.